We are now recording on Zoom. Good morning. If there are any directors who are in the attendees and need to be promoted, please go ahead and raise your hand. Good morning, Director Schaefer. I see you and I'm promoting you now.
We're about ready to go live. All right. If everyone's ready, we have a quorum. We will call the meeting to order. And I will ask Director Ferrix to lead us in. Oh, wait, roll call. You want to do roll call?
Yes, thank you.
Okay,
Chair Howdeshelt,
here.
Vice Chair Hernandez,
Present.
Director Byrd,
Here.
Director Broadway,
Here.
Director Chapman,
Here.
Director Foley. Director Foley?
Present.
Thank you. Director Frericks,
Here.
Director Alma Hernandez, Director Jane,
Here.
Director Lee. Here. Director Dickinson, Director Wren,
Here.
Director Rayburn,
Here.
Director Schaefer,
Here.
Director Sell,
Here.
Director Wright,
Here.
Director Brewer, Director Jones, Director Kennedy, Director Moy, Director Vega. Thank you. We have a quorum.
Thank you very much. Director Frericks, would you lead us in the pledge?
I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. Now we'll move to the report of the chair. I want to welcome the board, welcome everyone to the board meeting for the Capital Quarter Joint Powers Authority. Please note today's meeting is an in-person meeting in the Solano Transportation. Yeah, I should have done this before I started reading, right? Transportation Authority Boardroom at 423 Main Street, first floor, Sassoon City, zip code, I won't read, with an option for participation via teleconference. Please note the board members participating via teleconference are all doing so in locations posted 72 hours in advance of the meeting that are open and available for public participation. You can download the agenda and presentation materials at www.capitalquarter.org/CCJPA-board/. All speakers, including CCJPA board and staff, are requested to announce their name as they begin to speak. For public participants who join in person, if you'd like to provide public comments, please complete a quote request to address the board end quote form available at the entrance of the board room and hand it to the secretary before the item is considered by the board. For public participants who join by telephone, your microphones are automatically muted. If you wish to speak on an agenda item, please dial *9 to virtually raise your hand when public comment is announced. When it's your turn to speak, you may need to dial *6 to accept the unmute request. For public participants who join via Zoom, please use the raise hand feature if you wish to speak. To board members and staff who joined via Zoom, please mute your microphones whenever you are not speaking to avoid background noise. If you wish to make a general public comment on a subject not on the agenda, you'll be given an opportunity to speak under item 7. However, if you have a comment on an item which is on the agenda, we will take those comments after the staff presentation and prior to board's discussion. Public comment is limited to 2 minutes per person per item. Board members, in order to reduce confusion throughout the meeting when it's time for director's remarks, I will call for board member comments. Vice Chair Hernandez and I will speak last. In the interest of time and to provide an opportunity for equal participation, please try to keep your comments concise. Next, on behalf of the board, I'd like to express our sincere thanks to departing Director Katie Maple, who represented the Sacramento Regional Transit District. We really, truly, and I want to say personally, truly appreciate Director Maple's perspective and hard work and dedication and the support she's given to the Capital Quarter Joint Powers Authority. Now, please join me, although he is not participating today, he will be here in a future meeting, welcoming the newest CCJPA Board of Directors, Director Roger Dickinson. We're actually welcoming him back, representing Sacramento Regional Transit District, and alternative board member Myra Vega, representing the Yolo County Transportation District. Finally, and with regret, and despite before the meeting, me trying to talk her out of this, we would like to extend our heartfelt thanks and appreciation to a valued member of the CCJPA team. This will be her final CCJPA board meeting in her current role, and I want to express on behalf of the board a special appreciation for April Contella, who's dedicated nearly 7 years of service to CCJPA, including the past 3 years as secretary of the CCJPA board. Your contribution will be invaluable, and we deeply appreciate your hard work. We're envious of your change, but we appreciate your commitment. And that concludes the report of the chair. Next, move to the consent calendar. Consent calendar consists of things that are non-controversial. Do we have any requests to remove any items from the consent calendar from the board? Or from the public? If not, I'll take a motion on the consent calendar.
So moved.
We'll call roll.
Certainly. Chair Hoddeshill,
Yes.
Vice Chair Hernandez,
Aye.
Director Byrd,
Aye.
Director Broadway,
Yes.
Director Chapman, Director Foley,
Aye.
Director Fearix, Director Alma Hernandez, Director Jane,
Yes.
Director Lee,
Yes.
Director Dickinson, Director Rin,
Yes.
Director Rayburn,
Yay.
Director Schaefer,
Aye.
Director Sell,
Yes.
Director Wright,
Aye.
Director Moy.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you. The motion passes unanimously.
Thank you very much. We'll next move to action and discussion items, and the first one is adoption of draft FYI 2025-2026 and FY 2026-27 annual business plan.
Thank you. Rob
Managing
Paget
Director.
here, Managing Director. Appreciate the opportunity to present this item today. This is our request to the state for funding for the next fiscal year. It is a requirement of this board every year to approve an annual business plan. This is the one item that requires a 2/3 vote by the board. So I want to personally thank everybody for being here today. Excited to have you here to join us in this request. We submit this request to CalSTA, and sometimes there are small changes to that request, and then we will come back to you in September. We'll get a formal approval of our budget in September, bring that to you as a board again. So you'll have another opportunity to approve the final budget for the coming fiscal year. This item is going to be presented by a couple of people on my team. Leo Sanchez, who's joining us remotely, who's my Deputy Managing Director, and Kat Relucio, who's here in person, who's our Manager of Budget. And with that, I'll turn it over to Kat to begin the presentation.
Good morning. Good morning, CCJPA Board of Directors. I'm Kat Relucio, the Manager of Budget and Administration with Capital Corridor. And together with Leo, we will present the FY26 and FY27 Annual Business Plan and Funding Request. So this first slide here before you is an overview of the Annual Business Plan and Funding Request process and timeline. So in January of 2025, we released the draft Annual Business Plan to the public on our website, and we push it out via social media and other communication channels. In February, we hosted several onboard in-person workshops on our trains, as well as virtual workshops, where we presented the plan and held discussions with our passengers and the public. We collected comments via numerous channels. All comments collected were summarized in a document, which was included in your board packet and responded to accordingly. And Leo will be discussing that shortly in a subsequent slide. So here we are today in April. We are presenting the draft plan to you for adoption, after which we will submit to CalSTA in draft form later this month. We will continue updating our forecasts as information becomes available. And then in June, we will submit the final annual business plan to CalSTA. By June 30th, we request CalSTA to provide our annual business plan approval letter and funding allocation before the start of the new fiscal year, which is July 1st. And then lastly, as Rob mentioned previously, in September, we will present the FY 25-26 budget to the board for to the CCJPA board for adoption at the September meeting. Next slide, please. So as required by the Capital Corridor's interagency transfer agreement with the state, our annual business plan presents an overview of our operating plan, capital improvement plan, and funding request for the next 2 fiscal years. So this slide shows the different required components that we need to include in each plan. Some of these components will have a more detailed slide that will be presented by Leo later on in the presentation. The first is performance standards required under the state's uniform performance standards. We'll have a slide on that later on. Leo will also present the operating plan. For safety and security, the plan discusses our continued collaboration with Union Pacific Railroad to maintain the right-of-way infrastructure in prime condition. This continued effort helps to reduce delays and improve service reliability. Rolling stock updates will be covered by Leo shortly. The next item is long-term service enhancement activities over the next 2 years. They are also highlighted in our annual business plan, such as efforts to advance the Sac to Roseville project, the South Bay Connect environmental phase, and Link 21, the new Trans-Bay Rail crossing. Service amenities remain a high priority, and we will continue to focus on enhancing the passenger experience through amenities such as onboard Wi-Fi, with technology and Wi-Fi portal upgrades, modernization of the passenger information display system, and we will continue to implement Tap to Ride, which is the contactless payment system on board our trains. The next bullet is marketing and communications. We will focus on developing and implementing comprehensive marketing and a communications plan to attract and grow ridership to pre-pandemic levels. And then lastly, a major component of the plan is the funding request for the next 2 fiscal years, and I will present that later on in the presentation. And now I'm going to hand it over to Leo to discuss our key performance goals.
Thanks, Kat. Good morning, members of the board. I am Leo Sanchez, Deputy Managing Director. Here on this slide, you can see our performance goals that include ridership, revenue, endpoint on-time performance, and fare box recovery ratio. On the top left, we have our ridership, and we are projected to exceed 1.2 million riders over the next couple of years. Last year, we did exceed 1 million for the first time since federal fiscal year 19, and we continue to see steady growth, and we have not yet plateaued, which is great news. Similarly, on the top right, revenue is growing steadily and projected in the next 2 years to reach almost $27 million. On the bottom left is our on-time performance, which in recent months has begun to improve, and this remains a key area of focus for CCJPA staff, and we're doing everything we can to get back to 90% and beyond. Lastly, on the bottom right, you can see our fare box recovery ratio, which continues to rise, now in the mid to high 40s, and we're getting closer to that 50% goal. Next slide. Here we have our current and future projected service levels. As you can see, for the weekday service, we are now running 24 weekday trains and 22 weekend trains. In the middle, you can see our anticipated plans to grow from 24 to 28 weekday trains, restoring our last round trip from Oakland to San Jose this summer. Our plans for the next fiscal year are to restore the remainder of our weekday service back to 30 trains as more equipment is available. Next slide. Some of the challenges that exist to fully restore our service are shown here. Beginning with equipment availability, we are engaged with our partners at San Joaquin Joint Powers Authority and LOSAN in Southern California, along with Caltrans, and have a planned equipment redeployment plan. This document maps out how the state-owned equipment is allocated among the 3 agencies. The San Joaquins are continuing to commission the new single-level Siemens Venture cars on their route. This will free up bi-level equipment that will be reallocated to the Capital Corridor and LOSAN. Our first plan is to use the extra rail cars to lengthen trains as more equipment becomes available and fully restore our service later this year. The state is also pursuing other equipment to bridge the gap statewide for both short and long-term plans. And then the second challenge is staffing resources, which is key to getting more train service running, and we are engaged with our partners at Amtrak to be prepared to ramp up. Next slide. On rolling stock, there are a lot of things progressing. The truck overhaul or rail car suspension overhaul is continuing. This will lead to a much better ride quality that riders will be able to notice, and they probably have already noticed with a few cars that are out running that have been overhauled. We are continuing to also work on our transition to a third-party contractor for maintenance, and that would be TASI, Transit America Services Incorporated, to improve mechanical reliability and cleanliness standards. And lastly, we're working closely with the state on efforts to refresh and modernize our locomotive fleet and just the regular rail cars as well. Next slide. On Tap to Ride, we launched our registration site, which is open to more participants, and we're seeking to grow about 500 active users. Additionally, we're looking to add Tap to Ride readers to Amtrak Thruway bus connections from San Francisco to Emeryville, so that should be coming soon, and that will be a great way to see the connectivity, not just on the train side, but also on the bus side. So we have a lot of moving pieces that are going to continue moving both in the short term and the long term. We're also working closely to see how we can implement the inspection app on the Apple devices that the conductors carry today. And there's a lot of different elements that staff is continuing to work on. Next slide. So we received great engagement during our annual business plan workshops, receiving well over 100 comments between onboard, virtual workshops, and email communication. Here on this slide are the top themes that arose during the workshops. Regarding service enhancements, people were wanting to know about our plans to return to full service. On Tap to Ride, comments centered on information on the program and eligible cards. On service, there was a lot of good feedback about improvements to the existing schedule and the potential to add different trains. And on stations, we received feedback about South Bay Connect and the request for continued attention of Oakland Coliseum. There were concerns regarding bike capacity and the types of bicycles and scooters that can be brought on board. And lastly, on cafe service, riders would like to see more options and amenities brought forward. So a lot of great feedback, and we've responded to all of the feedback. That all of the feedback is included in the packet, and you can see the detailed list at your convenience. Thank you, and I'll hand it off back to Kat Relucio.
Great. Thank you, Leo. So now I'm going to be presenting the FY26 and FY27 funding request. So the largest component of the annual business plan funding request is for train operations, which is shown on this slide. The forecast presented for the Amtrak operating budget is derived from the state's Cost Optimization Strategic Initiative, or COSI model. So the first line shows revenue, projected revenue, followed by Amtrak operating expenses, and then train equipment maintenance will be paid for by SJJPA to the new service provider on CCJPA's behalf. The funding for that effort, that's the row with the asterisks, will be requested by the San Joaquin's Joint Powers Authority on Capital Corridor's behalf, very similar to how Capital Corridor requests funding for Wi-Fi and PIDs on the behalf of the other JPAs. So on the slide before you, you can see a reduction in Amtrak expenses from FY24 to FY25, which carries through to 26 and 27. And that is primarily due to the transition of the train equipment maintenance from Amtrak to the new provider, which will help reduce equipment maintenance costs over time while improving operating efficiencies and enhancing the quality of service. The total Amtrak operating subsidy is revenue less expenses, and for the Capital Corridor service from FY25 to 26 is a decrease of 4%, and from 26 to 27, it's a decrease of 2%. Next slide, please. So this slide is a summary of the total annual business plan funding request for FY26 and 27. Details regarding the full funding request are in your agenda packet, beginning on page 26, as well as in table 9-1, which can be found on page 27 of the draft annual business plan document, which was at the back of your board agenda packet that Mimi distributed. So I'm going to draw your eyes to the total CCJPA funding requirement, which is about 3/4 down on the slide with two asterisks before it. The total CCJPA funding requirement for Capital Corridor operations, administration, and marketing for FY26 is $37.8 million, and for FY27 is $38.4 million. We're projecting an overall increase of 3% from what was funded in the prior year. And then I'm going to walk you through from the top down on the slide what that includes. It includes a net decrease of 4% in the Amtrak operating budget from 24 to 25, which I described in the prior slide. For direct operations, you'll see a big increase, and that's due to the restructuring of budget categories. We shifted tap to ride expenses, which were formerly budgeted under the California Intercity Passenger Rail Supplemental Allocation. Now we're transitioning that over to direct operations. And that's for our tap to ride effort, the contactless payment on the train. A major cause of the increase in the tap to ride expenses is due to the transition. We're assuming customer service and project management activities for tap to ride, which were currently provided by the state's Cal ITP project, and now Capital Corridor is taking on those activities as we get more into implementation. And then the other reason for the increase in expenses for tap to ride are due to our plans for expansion, which Leo had described earlier. And then lastly, I just wanted to mention there's an increase of 6% in the administrative budget, and that's primarily due to labor and insurance cost increases, and then a 4% increase in information customer support services and 2% in the marketing budget. The CCJPA supplemental allocation, which is the second to the last line on the slide, is $1.5 million. That remains flat. That includes $1 million for capitalized maintenance, and then $500,000 for minor capital. And then lastly, California Intercity Passenger Rail Supplemental Allocation. This funding supports Capital Corridor-led projects that benefit all 3 passenger rail services in California: Capital Corridor, the San Joaquins, and Losan. The request is for $14 million for FY26 and $11.7 million for FY27. And you'll see in your packet that will support Northern California onboard Wi-Fi, the California Integrated Travel Program, and then passenger information display system maintenance and operations support. The increase of 16% from FY26 to FY27 is primarily due to necessary technology upgrades to the Northern California onboard Wi-Fi system. So in summary, today, we are asking for the board's approval of CCJPA's FY25 and FY26 draft annual business plan for submission to the Secretary of CalSTA in April, and we will continue to update forecasts as additional information becomes available and submit the final annual business plan to CalSTA in June per the requirements under our interagency transfer agreement with the state. And this agenda item requires 2/3 vote, as Rob had previously mentioned. This concludes our presentation, and Rob, Leo, and I would be more than happy to answer any questions that you have.
We do have questions from directors at the podium.
I do, Chair.
Yeah.
Hi,
Hi, welcome.
thank you so much. Sorry for me being tardy, losing my voice a little bit. I just had a question about staffing. Leo, what specific staffing are we talking about, or is it across the board?
Hi, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
This is Leo, Deputy Managing Director. So the staffing is mainly around train conductors and engineers and ensuring that we have the capability to make sure we do that, as well as the mechanical maintenance staff.
And I got my order reversed. Is there any public comment on this item? Seeing none, now I'm in the right order. Oh, wait, do we have any public comment online?
We do not have any public comment hands online, but Director Foley would like to speak on this item.
And do we have any written comment from the public on this?
There were no written comments received for the meeting.
All right, Director Foley would like to speak. Okay.
Yes, thank you. A quick question regarding the return to the pre-COVID operating schedule. Are we simply going back to the old schedule, or have we revised the 30 train schedule to reflect ridership trends?
Hi, this is
Will you take that question?
Yep, this is Leo again, Deputy Managing Director. So currently we're working to activate the train slots that we have approved, and we are also working on a parallel path where we are making improvements, and we'll be soliciting ridership or ridership polling and feedback from the riding public, and that would be for a later fall implementation when we go to our maximum service levels.
Got it. Thank you.
And Rob Patch here. I want to add too, for those who are newer to the board, is for any schedule change that we have to get that approved by Union Pacific, and we have a very collaborative relationship with Union Pacific. So we work, our team, Amtrak and Union Pacific together work on a schedule, and then get that approved by Union Pacific. So it's a pretty long process. And so the quick action to add those 2 round trips back is to take advantage of the slots that were already approved, but we are going to have a more significant change in schedule with that full implementation, as Leo said.
Any other direct comments? Director Chapman?
Thank you, Chair. My question is around the 50% fare box recovery goal. Is that a goal that's set by the board, or is that industry standard? Other transportation, I mean, it seems pretty good. Other transportation modes, it's much lower than that. I'm curious as to where that number comes from.
Yeah, that number that's a state requirement for our service. It's actually a requirement of all 3 of the Joint Powers Authorities. We were at about 60% in 2019. And that's a good question and a good comment. And I think it's one of the things that the board should look to in the future. Part of where we want to be depends on how much financial resources we have available to subsidize the service. And obviously you grow the service, that's a great thing, but you also need to provide enough resources to be able to provide that subsidy. So we'll keep our eye on it, but I think for our own fiscal stability and stability of service, it's good for us to get back to that 50% number.
Absolutely, yeah. And I think in future meetings or conversations, kind of some strategies to get to that with Tap to Ride or other services that we're looking to implement that will do it. Obviously, it's a combination of things with marketing and other things that we're doing, especially with other events happening in our region. I think finding strategies to get to that, which I know we are, but it'd be, I think a conversation with the board would be great.
Yep.
Thank you.
Director Rayburn.
I want to applaud staff for conducting the virtual and online discussions about the business plan and for publishing the full list of 90 queries and responses. Actually more, because some of those 90, like service, had lots of people heaping on. That's on the tip of everybody's tongue. So I think that it's buried in the appendix, but it's really worthwhile reading, and it's enlightening to see that our goals are in alignment with the goals of our passengers. And there were several items that I saw great suggestions that we consider dedicating storage for scooters so that they're not in the way of parking bikes, and maybe they can be a little more copacetic if we allocate the right space to each device. And the train I was on this morning did have a full cab car full of bikes. It was filled. The 1.45 million supplemental, does that go toward security and fencing type projects?
So the $1 million is for the capitalized maintenance. That's just the ongoing routine maintenance on the right of way. The 500K we have so those are for projects that are $388,000 or less. And we have done fencing projects for a certain area at that amount. So it is a very flexible pot of money that we can use for whatever it is that we determine is the most needed at the time.
And are we able to leverage that with the Union Pacific Railroad on their right of ways?
Yes, yes,
Good.
yes. We do that in alignment with some of our other work that we're doing with Union Pacific.
Those
And-
are, go ahead.
I was going to add a little bit to that. The other source of funds that we use for the right-of-way work is the SRA funding, where we're funding the 2 positions, additional patrol positions on the right-of-way, and then the fencing project. And as we've talked about at the previous meeting, we did get the $20 million grant from the federal government, which we're matching with the SRA dollars to allow us to take on that larger fencing project.
That's major. That will reduce delays for our passengers, which, yeah. The only other item that I think we could reduce more delays with would be to replace a certain bridge between Martinez and anyway, let's move this item. I'll move.
We have
it.
Director Seld has her hand up.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Director Seld.
Hi, this is Director Sell. I wanted to thank you for the work of this report and the financial stewardship of the funds. On page where you talk about challenges to service restoration, you talk about equipment availability. Have you considered how potential tariffs will impact the Joint Powers Authority going forward? Is there if there is financial concerns, will there be buffer for that or mitigation?
Yeah, no, good question. Rob Paget here. I'll take that question. So I don't think we know yet the impact of tariffs. There's two places where that could have an impact. One is on the existing equipment. So parts are impacted. We do use some parts not manufactured in the U.S. And then the second is, I'll say 3. The second is we're going to do the overhaul of equipment, which we are planning to do in coordination with the state in the coming years. We'll have to see how much that impacts the cost of our applicants for that project. And then third, as we're looking forward to procurement, we will have to see how that has an impact. Now, a lot of our cars are manufactured in the U.S., so I don't think we have the expertise, but we can certainly keep tabs on and come back to you with an update in the future.
Okay, and then my second question is, in the Bay Area, the 2026 will be a time when we'll have large sporting events such as FIFA and the Super Bowl. And I was just wondering if increased allocation of funds or increased coordination would be needed to address those in the Bay Area.
Yeah, I'll let Leo take care of that. He's been coordinating on those activities.
Yeah, thanks for the comment question, Leo, Deputy Managing Director. So staff has been engaged in conversations with the Bay Area Host Committee, both for the Super Bowl as well for the FIFA World Cup next year. Equipment is obviously top of mind when it comes to being able to provide the service that we would like to provide. And so we are having fruitful and productive conversations alongside Caltrans. Caltrans will be likely taking the lead as they are the equipment owner, and when we enter into leases, they're the ones that assist us with leases. So we'll be working alongside with them. We've identified some opportunities and some options that we might be able to take advantage of. And as we have more details, we can happily share those with you all. But right now, it's looking positive that we'll have the equipment that we need. And in terms of funding, at least for the leases, Caltrans will provide that on our behalf.
Okay, and then lastly, along that lines, there will be maybe an influx of a lot of people coming to those events, and security might be, you need to consider extra security concerns, I don't know, or coordination with other security agencies. So just a comment.
Yeah, and Rob
For your work.
Paget here, I'll add a little
Yeah.
bit to that too. So we are participating in the One Host Committee, and I'm sitting next to General Manager Powers here with Bart, who's on that committee as well. So we're actively participating, and I think we're pretty excited about this opportunity to showcase the region and show how the transit agencies and intercity rail agencies can work together. Obviously, we're close to Levi Stadium and provide good service, but we're going to have our own capacity issues, and excited to work with all the other agencies and make this a real highlight for the region.
And just to add, not to take that.
No, that's good.
Yeah, sorry about that. To the question about funding, there's two requests in. There's a funding request in for this coordination. It's all about safety and security, moving folks in and out of these events. So there's a funding request up into Sacramento from the host committee for this effort for the Bay Area here, as well as for LA, right? LA is a host city as well. And then there is a national request into the federal government in Washington, D.C., because it's bigger than just California. There's other cities, Seattle and New Jersey. And so anyway, just know that there's a lot of folks pushing on the funding requests as well, both in Sacramento and D.C.
Okay, thank you so much for your work and answers to my questions.
Hey, Director Rayburn has made the motion to adopt a resolution 25-7. Take a second.
Second.
All right, and it's Director Sell, right? Moy, I'm sorry. It's the same number of letters, right? No, maybe one short. I can't read backwards very well. All right, we have a motion and a second, and welcome Director Brewer. Can we call the roll? Do we need to call the roll? Yes.
Thank you. Chair Haddishelt,
Yes.
Vice Chair Hernandez,
Aye.
Director Byrd,
Aye.
Director Broadway,
Yes.
Director Chapman, Director Foley,
Aye.
Director Freeriks, Director Alma Hernandez, Director Jane,
Yes.
Director Lee,
Yes.
Director Dickinson, Director Wren,
Yes.
Director Rayburn,
Yay.
Director Schaefer,
Yes.
Director Sell,
Yes.
Director Wright,
Yes.
Director Brewer,
Yes.
Director Moy. Thank you. The motion carries unanimously
Wow, that's more than 2/3, right?
by the required 2/3 vote.
All right. Obviously, I can't count letters. Moy is only 3 letters. Sell is 4 letters. So I just want to make sure. All right. Our next item is item 5.2. Authorize the FY 2024-2025 CCJPA CCJPA and Amtrak operating agreement. Director Paget.
Yeah, this will be a quick one. So we come every year and approve the Amtrak operating agreement. We don't have a typo here. This is the current fiscal year that we're operating in. We're operating under a continuation clause right now, but we're here to get this approved so we can keep operating the service. I'm going to hand it over to Kat, who will do a quick summary of the item.
Hello, Kat Relucio here again, Manager of Budget and Administration, to present the FY25 CCJPA Amtrak Operating Agreement. So the Amtrak Operating Agreement is renewed every fiscal year for train and bus operations, and it aligns with Amtrak's fiscal year, which is the federal fiscal year, for which FY25 is defined as October 1, 2024 to September 30th, 2025. So to date, as Rob mentioned, we've been operating under the FY24 operating agreement's continuation clause, which allows us to continue Amtrak operations until the new agreement is executed, after which costs will revert back to the FY25 approved budget and provisions under the new agreement. So today we're requesting the board's approval of the FY25 operating agreement that assumes an increase to train service in the fourth quarter, The agreement not to exceed amount is based on the state's Cost Optimization Strategic Initiative, COSI, which forecasts costs in the amount of 55 million, less projected revenue in the amount of 26.8 million for a total Amtrak operating budget of 28.2 million. This was approved, the funding for this was approved by the board back in September, which was allocated by the state through our annual business plan process. So in summary, we're requesting for the board's approval of the FY25 CCJPA Amtrak operating agreement for a not to exceed amount of $28.2 million. And we would be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Great, I'll open it for public comment first. None in the room, any online?
I don't see any hands.
I'll bring it back to the board, see if director comments. Director Rayburn?
Is there a worst case scenario in the event that the San Joaquin trains don't get the venture cars that they need to allow us to take the bi-levels from them and have capacity to run 28 trains a day?
Rob Paget here. So worst case scenario is we run our service as we run it today. We are still able to add those 2 trains where there are existing 8 consists. So we, we're in a good place. Getting back to 100% of our service, adding that 15th round trip will require the bi-levels, but we figured out a way to do it without those at this point.
So there's no chance that we're not going to end up running 28 trains per day.
That is an
July 1st.
accurate statement. Yeah, we're going to run those 28 not round trips, 28 trains a day. Correct.
Awesome. You've got my vote.
Any other directors on the podium? I don't see any hands up. Do we have a motion? Well,
I'll second.
all right, moved by Director Rayburn, seconded by Director Brewer. Call the roll, please.
Chair Howdeshilt,
Yes.
Vice Chair Hernandez,
Aye.
Director Byrd,
Aye.
Director Broadway,
Yes.
Director Chapman, Director Foley,
Aye.
Director Freeriks, Director Alma Hernandez, Director Jane,
Yes.
Director Lee,
Yes.
Director Dickinson, Director Wren,
Yes.
Director Rayburn,
Yay.
Director Schaefer,
Yes.
Director Sell,
Yes.
Director Wright,
Yes.
Director Brewer,
Yes.
Director Moy. Thank you. The motion carries unanimously.
Thank you very much. Next, we'll move to item 5.3, CCJPA Capital Project Portfolio Update.
So we'll keep this one quick from the staff presentation side. In your packet, you have a list of all the capital projects. We do not have a highlight. We usually come with a highlighted project. We're not doing that today. So we will be happy to take any questions any of you have on any of the projects in the packet.
Questions? Director Rayburn?
Thank you. Near and dear to my heart is the South Bay Connect project. And in the matrix, it shows that it'll take until 2030 to deliver a plan. And this is on an existing Amtrak right-of-way between Coliseum Station and Newark. Can you elaborate on, is that 5 years of planning and is that necessary?
Yeah, appreciate the question. So on the South Bay Connect project, so as you remember, we brought before the board the approval of the CEQA document at a recent meeting. And the timeframe through 2030 is for the design of the project, for the full design of the project. We are going to be working with Union Pacific over the coming months to establish an agreement on exactly what capital improvements we are going to be required to do for that project. And that will be a very, very important step, not just on the schedule for design, but also on the cost of the project. We think we can do it for an investment that is less than we have conservatively estimated in this number that you see in your packet. So we will come back to you and give you a full presentation on that. In terms of timing, I will tell you that the reality of big projects is you're bringing together funds from a lot of different sources, one of which is federal. And because we have not had federal dollars in this project to date, we have not had to do the environmental documentation on this project at a federal level. We did it at a state level. And that adds a lot of time to a project. Looking forward on big projects, because there now is a federal program for intercity rail, we intend to federalize projects earlier in the process so that we don't have the kind of delays that you see when you have to stop a project and do NEPA, even though you've already done CEQA. So not the schedule I'd like to put in front of you, but the reality of a big project with federal dollars and state dollars is that, and working with the right-of-way owner, Union Pacific, is that these projects do take a lot of time.
Thank you for that response. I particularly like that it's not going to cost nearly as much as projected.
Any other comments? Anyone? I don't see any hands up.
Mr. Chair, I've got one.
Oh, yeah,
Yep.
Director Ferris.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate the overview. Just wanted to check in specifically on the, just trying to figure out the math on the Davis Station signal improvements. So the secured funds by the CCJPA, a little over $8 million, partner contribution, a little over $3 million, total project cost, about $16 million. So clearly there's a little bit of a gap there on the, and that's on sort of page 33 in the packet. But on the, when we flip to the next sort of set of charts regarding the CCJPA state rail assistance, the SRA funding update, it shows that it being a funded SRA, approved SRA funded project of about 1.8 million. So I'm just curious, sort of how those dollars fit into the overall project cost. And so is that part of the partner contribution cost? Is that part of the, in the CCJPA secured funds column? So I'm just curious. And then, so a little bit about those details. And then the last part, I guess, is where is the balance of the funding anticipated to come from? Thank you.
Yeah, appreciate the question, and you've highlighted an error in the packet, so it's good to do that. But so the SRA funds that is one of the contributors to the project, just to answer that first. But on the total project, it is fully funded, and so we were able to get Amtrak to agree with FRA approval to make a $5 million contribution to the Signal and Crossover project. And the reason they're able to do that is that Signal and Crossover project is required for reconstruction of the Davis station. And the reconstruction of the Davis station will allow that station to become fully ADA accessible. So FRA had to approve Amtrak's use of ADA funds for the crossover project. So it's fully funded. We're working on moving on that project. Because we're using Amtrak funds, we had to do environmental clearance quickly. Should be simple, famous last words. But anyways, but it is good to go. We're moving on it.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. I appreciate
the question.
Yeah, thank you.
So the 15 million is right?
Correct. That's the right number. It's funded though. We've got the funds available. Yeah.
All right.
Yep.
I don't see any hands up. Keep the microphone on. We'll go to our next item, which should be exciting.
Yeah, my favorite
Oh,
item
nope.
is the legislative update.
Not an action item, just an information item on
Yeah.
that. Yeah, but thanks, because I was making sure of that, yeah.
So where to start? So in your packet, there's a summary of where we are on state and federal legislation. I'm going to stick today to the federal side and just talk a little bit about that. I know there's a lot of interest in that. And I want to first remind everybody that our funding is state funding. So we do have a couple of grants that are federal, but all of our operating funds are state dollars. So just a reminder to everybody that I get asked that question a lot about what's the impact of some of the federal cuts on your service. That said, one of our important partners is Amtrak. And Amtrak's CEO was asked to step down. So that position is currently vacant. And we're going to keep our eyes on that and see how that changes the company moving forward. And as the board has supported over the years, we do not entirely rely on Amtrak. And in fact, the mechanical outsourcing is going to shift over to a private operator. So there's a little bit of a mix here. They're not our only operator, but we're going to watch the impacts of some of the federal changes. And then the second thing is FRA. Like all federal agencies, FRA is downsizing, and we're going to have to see how that impacts. I know some of you have FRA grants for things like grade crossing projects, and we're keeping tabs on that. On the good news side, the work that I've done, my team's done, and staying engaged in DC is helpful. I'm still a member of the Passenger Rail Advisory Committee, which is part of the Surface Transportation Board. And I'll just say I'm optimistic about that committee's ability to have some positive influence in rail policy when we have our third meeting coming up first week in May. So I'm looking forward to doing that. And some of the folks who are nominated on the FRA side into senior level jobs have a history of working in rail. I think some real solid folks have been nominated to that. On the budget side, at the federal level, I think you're all aware there's a continuing resolution for the current fiscal year. The budget for next year is in the works. We're going to have to see how that lands. I think from my perspective, probably the thing I'm most concerned about is the stability of Amtrak as an organization. If anything comes up that is important, we will keep you posted on that. But overall, I think it's a little bit of a wait and see here in terms of how it impacts our service. With that, I'm going to pause, and I'm sure there are questions. It's a deep topic, and I'll be happy to cover what I can cover.
Great. Directors, questions, comments? I think we're all just numb. Okay. All right. I don't see any hands raised. All right. I'm sure there'll be a conversation. Oh,
Yep. Yeah. Sorry about that,
thanks.
Mr.
Thanks.
Chair.
We couldn't go through this item without. a
Exactly.
question.
At least one legislative question. So thank you, Mr. Chair. Just Rob, thanks for the initial updates. Obviously, it's been more on the federal side, but the item you have in the state side, of course, is around the governor's budget and such. If you can remind us, it's like the TIRSIP program as an example, what is the funding source for that, right? I mean, because I guess before we hear a little bit more, I think that one of the obviously the concerns I think probably we're all thinking as well, though, is that if there are, we may not receive a lot of our current funding from the federal government. Okay, fine. But, the residual cuts that might be coming in other categories across other industries, may mean that the state, of course, has to backfill, funding in other categories. And then it may mean less funding for transportation and transit and such. So just curious about the sort of the funding, this very specifically about TIRSIP, for example, where those dollars are coming from.
Yeah, appreciate the question. And the TIRSIP dollars come from cap and trade, so that's going to influence. And as you correctly stated, that is the source of most of our capital dollars. Yep. We do have a little bit of funding that we get about roughly $6 million a year in SRA funds. That's a formula fund that comes to us on the capital side that fills in small stuff. And then on the operating side, we depend on a diesel sales tax. So there's a specific allocation. We don't go every year and ask for an appropriation. We actually get those through an allocation. And that cap was the revenues were there in that source for a long time, but the cap was at $131 million across the three JPAs, and that cap was raised this past year. For a 3-year period, though, to be super clear. So there's an expectation that we're going to continue to work on keeping our costs reasonable. And that's one of the reasons why and I think my team has done an exceptional job of working as hard as we can with Amtrak, who's a big organization, to try to manage those costs. Because we do want to keep ourselves in a really solid fiscal place so that if things get tight, that we're able to take some actions to keep our services going.
Thank you. Yeah, I think so. Appreciate that explanation. That I would say then, that we should, I would suggest we should be thinking about taking a position on the reauthorization of cap and trade. I mean, as an agency, like weighing in on that process. I mean, the legislature is definitely having those discussions now, whether it's sort of just a straight across the board reauthorization, whether there are sort of adjustments. So, I mean, I don't know if we are considering, if that's something that we are considering doing, not today, clearly, but I mean, I think it's very important for us to be doing that. Everyone else is definitely weighing in and making their sort of positions known on how they want to see cap and trade continue, or what it should look like. And so it would seem like that we would want to be doing something similar.
All right, thank you, Director Frericks. Anyone else? All right. Now we'll move to the Managing Director's report.
Excuse me, Chair Haldeshell. I'm sorry, Director Sell just raised her hand.
Oh, my apologies. I looked and I missed it. Go ahead, Director Sell.
Hi, this is Director Sell. I want to thank you for the report. And I know a lot of the agencies that run adjacent to this joint powers have consulting firms helping them with state and federal communications to so I just encourage you to work with the adjacent agencies so that we can have a unified message, and so that the adjacent agencies also know of the concerns, such as the cap and trade, the position that this joint powers would like to take on the cap and trade. Any changes are keep the same at the state level. So I'm just making a comment.
Yeah, Rob Padgett here. Appreciate the comment. And I do want to make a plug here for our relationship with BART. We have an administrative services agreement with BART. Part of that is support on legislative actions as well. And so, I'm very much in tune with that and get that support routinely from BART as well.
All right. I'll go slower so I don't miss anybody. All right. We'll move to your Managing Director's report.
All right. So I have some slides that I'll pull up for this one. And I want to start first by echoing the comments earlier in the meeting. April Cantia has been a phenomenal support for this group. These meetings do not run smoothly by chance. My team they were all quite upset that we also tried to convince her, Chair, but we couldn't either.
Can the chair make an action?
Sure. Anyway, so just to say, we really appreciate your support and wish you well in your next adventure here. Okay, so Managing Director's report. I'm going to talk today a little bit about performance, give you a quick Tap to Ride update. I want to talk a little bit about the Fair Change outreach we've done, and then we have a couple new interns on our team. We always like to bring new people in and say hello. Next slide, please. So at a high level here, and this is the period October 1st, which is the beginning of the federal fiscal year, and the fiscal year we have our contract with Amtrak through February. As Leo said earlier, we're continuing to march upward with ridership, and actually I'll say since this, we've had another little bump, so it's looking pretty good. Same on the revenue side, and we're getting real close to that 50% for fare box recovery. On-time performance is generally doing better. A couple years ago, we got as low as the low 80s, and a lot of that was some of the challenges with the right-of-way security. But we're doing okay. We're not quite to 90%. We're going to get there. So stay tuned on that. Next slide, please. We're going to put this slide in front of you, as much as I hate doing it every time, because it's such a critical issue and it's such an area of focus for us. We have had 5 fatalities so far on the corridor this year. I don't make any comments on the numbers, but put them in front of you and you can look at them and take what you'd like to take from them, but know that we're working hard my goal is to get this down to 0. Next slide, please. So as we talked about earlier, we have reopened, and for those who might be listening in, we have reopened tap to ride registration. So we had it capped at a pretty hard cap as we were working through a lot of interesting, complicated issues. You know, you do a pilot to learn something. And I know Director Rayburn's credit card finally worked this morning. He shared with us. So we've learned a lot. We've learned a lot, and the technology is working. And so we've welcomed those who've been on the waiting list to join, to participate, and excited to have those join. And we're watching our numbers tick up already since we've done that. So stay tuned on that. We'll come back to you. And if you can go to the next slide, we'll bring this report back to you. These are small numbers in terms of number of users, but one of the really fascinating things about, or the great things I think about Tap to Ride is the fare capping. It doesn't require that you buy your monthly fare, your 10 ride up front, but in fact, as you use it, you get that 5th ride free. You do 4 rides, you pay for 5th rides free. Lot of literature out there suggests this is a much more equitable approach to fare reductions. And the other thing I'll say is, and it relates to the next slide, you can go to the next slide, is we are promoting these shorter distance trips. We talked about that at the last board meeting, and we've done a real push on that. Tap to Ride lets you do that, and it takes the pressure off the conductors if you're going, say, between Davis and Sacramento in particular. Makes it a little bit easier for that to happen. So we have pushed this out. We've done a blast on lots of social media channels, and we've got this new advertising agency, Honey, which is based in Sacramento, on board, and excited to work with them to promote this service. And the question came up earlier about the FIFA and the Super Bowl. This will be a way for people to easily access our service. So I think that's a good deadline to get us to a place where it's really easy to use this as an open loop payment system. Next slide. And we got great coverage on our fare changes. So I think a lot of you amplified that and appreciate that you did that for us. There's a lot of interest in these shorter trips, and we'll come back to you. It's too early, I think, to give you an update on that, but my hope is we can, maybe in June or September, as part of the managing director's report, we'll come back and say, okay, so what did the fare changes do? Have we seen a change in some of these short markets? And I had a chance, I appreciate the opportunity this past week to speak at the STA board meeting and talk about it. And Solano County has some good markets that are going to benefit from these changes. If you can go to the next slide, please. And then just a shout out to the to the Port of Oakland. We joined the Port of Oakland and hosted a tour, legislative train tour, and we had them captive. So we got to talk a lot about Capital Corridor service. We had really great questions. A good group showed up. And I'll just say publicly, if there are others who are interested in doing that with a group, we welcome the opportunity to share our service, talk about our service and what we're trying to do here in Northern California. So we're open to those ideas from all of you. Next slide. All right, my favorite part. So I think Brian and Tiffany here today? Oh, they couldn't make it. All right, well, we'll wave to them. They're probably watching. So we've been partners with the Climate Corps program for a long time, and Kate, who is here today on my team, was an intern, and as was Shirley Chen, who's been with us for 10 years now. So this is a great program to get people excited who are interested in transportation and thinking about its contribution to positive changes with the environment. So excited to welcome Brian and Tiffany to our team. So with that, I will pause, and I'm happy to answer any questions any of you have.
Director Rayburn.
I just want to make a comment about Tap to Ride. Big kudos for leapfrogging over transit agencies throughout California. We've been waiting at BART for Ubik Corporation to get on board with allowing us the freedom to just use a credit card. I was able to sign up seamlessly. I've made there's no mystery that I've encountered problems in the past, but the new website works great. I was able to sign up and utilize my card today. I can download a record of my travel. You know, what's not to like? So, really good work. And I think this should be blasted out as soon as we're really ready, with the conductors all being well-versed on how to handle people that utilize the tap to ride. So we can move forward. Thank you.
Yeah, and I'll add a comment. Appreciate the comment. We've had very few people using it. And so the big step going forward is now that we're going to have more people using it, the conductors have to get used to the idea of checking fares. They have a different device. And so we're going to be in a phase of kind of change in actions on the trains with the conductors is our next pilot, call it, for the project.
Will the conductors have two different devices or can we integrate?
Currently, they have two different devices and we're working on the idea of integrating that into Apple. There's what they use for the Amtrak tickets.
Okay, thank you.
Director Jan, if you'll hold, we'll go to the BART directors. I'm not
Thank
sure
you.
who.
Yeah, no, it was Mark Foley had a quick question about on-time performance. For Rob, how do you measure on-time performance? What is the time window for that metric?
Appreciate the question. So for in-time, on-time performance, which is the one that we have the 90% target, we measure it within 15 minutes of scheduled arrival time. For customer on-time performance, that is based on the intended station for that customer. And I think that is a 10-minute window for interim stations.
Got it. Thank you.
Director Sell.
Hi, this is Director Sell. And we had that graph, the bar graph, and not sure what slide 23. So on that, it shows that fiscal year 25 revenue peaks in October, and then in November, it's the revenue is over fiscal year 24. But then in January and December, it's lower than fiscal year 25 is lower than fiscal year 24. And is that expected, or is there some reason between the October peaking of fiscal year 25 and then the decrease in fiscal year 24? And are you able to theorize why there is a decrease versus between fiscal year 24 and 25? And is that just a natural occurrence, or is there some reason, or is there anything that the Capitol Corridor could do to, because
Yeah, Rob Patchett here. So I can tackle that question. So, and I think you're referring to the tap to ride in particular. So a couple things here. One is just to remind everybody that we have a very small number of people who are currently signed up for this. We made a change in the fare approach for this program. So initially, because we knew it would be bumpy, we gave a very deep discount. So we priced tickets at essentially 10 ride rate minus $1. And we changed it to be a full price minus $2 with a fare capping. So you get your fifth ride free. So we changed the approach for tap to ride, which is part of what you're seeing here. But I will add that our ridership peaks in a couple of periods during the course of a year. And October is our busiest month in the year. May is also a super busy month. We tend to see a drop in November and December. Those tend to be slower months for us. So we definitely have a rhythm of ridership throughout the year, which is why we always, when we're internally looking at how we're doing, we look at an equivalent week from the previous year not month to month, because we do tend to have a seasonal variation in our ridership.
Okay, thank you.
Director Jan, thanks for your patience.
Thank you. I love the Tap to Ride program. Initially, I too had some credit card issues, but those have been resolved. One of my major complaints is that when I tap on and I tap off, I get the same message. So it's leaves uncertainty in my mind that I might have double tapped when I tap off and that it's going to charge me for a second ride. So it would be nice to have a different message for tap off than tap on. I love the automatic fare capping. You know, I've been in other countries where we have, you just use your credit card. It's not a closed system like Clipper. And I think as we get FIFA and Super Bowl people here, it would be nice to be able to have an open system for them to be charged for their rides. Thank you.
Appreciate the feedback.
Okay, I think that brings us to Board of Directors comments. Director Chapman, I want you to start. Did you take a train ride recently?
I haven't, no, but I would, I would like to thank Executive Director Paget and his team who joined Chair Hobichel, Director Frericks up at the Davis Station a few months ago and taking the time to come up there and do that. And also I just wanted to say thank you. I had Director Frericks and I had somebody reach out, a senior citizen in Davis who was having a really hard time getting in touch with somebody with Amtrak, with CCGBA, getting bounced around, had some ADA and accessibility issues at the station. And I plopped that over to Rob and his team, and they worked with her, dealt with her, and got some problems solved and got her headed in the right direction. So thank you for taking the time to do that, and thank your team for doing that as well.
So I'm to give you a report about your train ride in Peru. Is that what you?
Yes, I was in Peru recently with my children for spring break and rode Peru Rail, which was a great experience and was easy to use.
Anyone else have anything to report? Yes.
I wanted to say hello to everybody. You can call me Kat. That's my nickname. My mom always insisted on Catherine, especially when I was in trouble. It's good to meet all of you. And I wanted to say that Rob did come to our STA meeting and gave a great report. And he also spent time with me, as did Leo and Mimi also to onboard me. And that's not easy. And so I just wanted to thank them for that. And I hope to see you all again in the future. And it's been good working with you. You all seem like friendly fellows. I like that. So, and I hope that the season, whether you celebrate Passover, Easter, or none of the above, or all of the above, that you have an enjoyable week.
Thank you. All right. I don't see any hands up, and so we will that will bring us to our item 7, public comments. Anyone in the room?
We
Anyone?
have one hand on Zoom.
Okay, thanks. We'll take that comment.
We'll go to Roland. Roland, please go ahead.
Good morning, Director Roland Robrant, San Jose. So first of all, a very quick ask through the chair is whether it would be possible moving forward to enable the transcript, including the ability to save the transcript. It helps me personally because I can, back up to the transcript, which I cannot do with the closed captioning, but also I can search transcript and then find, the specific meeting where some information was provided. But the last thing I'd like to do is to really express my deep gratitude to April for her help over the last 3 years. She really brought the, the about meeting function of a board secretary to a new dimension. Thank you.
Wow. A lot of love. All right, I'm gonna issue an executive order that you can't leave. I mean, I think it's unanimous consent, right? I don't, yeah. If there's nothing else to come before the CCJPA board, we will be adjourned, and I will say that it takes a team. And so I think the strength of the team is on full display here. And I know that, whoever is in that chair, where April is, will be as strong as April has been. So thanks, everybody, and we'll be adjourned till June 18th at the BART offices.